All right, so welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where we're here to live a life um, on purpose and to be flourished and fulfilled in all areas of our life. So, I'm Sarah Jean, the host of this show, and here's Kirk McDowell, the head artist of Earthwaking Village. And today I would like to discuss the topic of the relationship that we have to failure.
Ooh,
Because living a life on purpose, we run into failure.
at least I certainly have.
Yes, and so how do we see failure through a different perspective and connect with it in a certain way that can flourish and drive our life on purpose, where we can use failure on purpose.
Beautiful. I guess it might be important to start at the beginning, where how we're taught. Oh, yeah, cool. So there's I believe there's a certain commonality to how we're taught to relate to failure and like in school, you get the question wrong, it's a failure, right?
Yeah, big fat F.
Yeah, you get an F, or actually worse than that, you get shamed or embarrassed. You get laughed at. For a kid, that's, a really big deal.
Yeah,
Um, and so we're taught early on, people get hit, beat, people get publicly shamed, humiliated, um, for getting it wrong, whatever it is, the wrong answer to the question. You know, um, or so, like you get a test question wrong or something, right? And that's bad. It's not, it's not neutral. Oh, I thought it was George Washington, not Ben Franklin. It's not a neutral thing. It's like, oh my God, you thought it was George Washington? What an idiot, right? So you really learn that. And
yeah,
then in so that's like in a formal setting, like school or work or something. But with your friends, if your friends are Democrat and you accidentally reveal you're Republican, like you get it wrong, that could be a really big deal. Or if you love hamburgers and your friends are vegetarians, you got it wrong. Or you like this kind of music and not that kind of music. You have, um, oh yeah, so the plot thickens, right? So I was just watching the news yesterday, and uh, oh my God, famous publisher was put in prison for a really long time. Um, darn it, I can't. Anyway, so people don't get punished. Well, people do get punished for getting it wrong, but people get really punished for getting it right when you're not supposed to. So, for example, just a few years ago, there was a, air quotes, medical crisis. And the solution was this vaccine, right? And for some of us, the way that the problem was being presented and the way that the solution was being presented, specifically with lacking a lot of facts or very distorted facts, well, let's just call it outright lies and manipulations and kind of threats and a lot of pressure, that to me was a clear indication that something was amiss, right? If a disease was happening and it was just like a disease, there'd be no like weird media coverage and everybody, it would be less anxiety about what everybody believed. And if the solution was real, I'll break that down just a second, then there you could let the merits of the solution do its own work, like, oh, these people have a real problem. and they have a real solution, obviously, if you just make the solution available, more and more people are going to pick it up and they're going to experience a great result, and like it'll just grow. Like you don't need to force people, you don't need to legislate it, you don't need to threaten people, you don't need to fire people. If
Yeah.
everything is true and real, you can just kind of let it unfold, right? Is my opinion, right? So I got very suspicious when I noticed the reporting on the disease itself was inconsistent. Like literally day by day, they would give you different numbers, and it was all highly angled in a particular direction to get people to comply through fear. So I was very present to manipulations of fear to alter people's behavior and beliefs. And then when the vaccine rolled around, it was exactly the same thing. It was all this misleading information and a lot of pressure, a lot of shame, a lot of judgment, and even
Yeah.
consequences, people getting fired to comply with this thing. And then what I'm saying, so if you told a lie, hey, this is, there's nothing weird going on here, then you were accepted. If you told the truth, like, hey, there's a lot of, because I did that. I said, people, well, how come you're not taking the vaccine? Like, I just start saying, well, I just noticed there's a lot of lies and a lot of pressure, and things that are true don't require all that. So I'm highly suspicious. This thing seems highly experimental. It has a lot of pressure, a lot of talking people into it, and a lot of legislation. So all that is like a big fat no to me. I'm just gonna chill for a little bit, and I'll just let the flower unfold, and I'm certain the truth will be uncovered over time, right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened. So now it turns out that the vaccine was not in a vaccine. Vaccines actually stop or retard transmission and stop or retard people getting infected. This did neither. So,
Wow.
I'm not making this up. It was actually
Yeah.
declared not a vaccine, which is what I said at the very beginning. Hey, this is not a vaccine because this, that, and the other. Everybody thought I was so repugnant. Like I got looks and all kind of stuff from people. Right?
I got family that didn't even want to talk to me no more.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
So
Right. And that's yeah, and
yeah.
that's a lot of people have that, probably more severe stories than us. So it was questioning the lies and presenting the truth is often where the experience of failure happens. So failure happens when you get it wrong in the
Hmm.
right environment, or when you get it right in the wrong environment, I think is the point I'm trying to make, right?
Oh
Because
yeah, that's a
I
really
was
good. That's
saying
a
things that were actually true, borne out over time. It was my opinion at the time, but they turned into facts over time. My opinions have aged well in this case, right?
yeah.
And I noticed that people who were actually correct are the ones that are hurt the most. People are being canceled and fired and ridiculed, and shamed and judged, and all kinds.
Hmm.
Canceled by their families and friends. You know,
Yeah.
the people who are confidently following the lie and hurting people who don't confidently follow the lie. Yeah. So anyway, my point there, I guess, is failure is kind of a perspective. It's kind of subtle because I could say in a way I succeeded in discovering in determining the lie and therefore having access to the truth with regard to the disease and the vaccine. But my experience in specific situations or conversations or relationships was one of failure because I was shamed and judged and ridiculed and all that kind of stuff, canceled and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's an interesting caveat to failure. One thing we say a lot around here is the um, access. I actually forget how we say it, so I'm going to say it brand new. It's going to be a little bit different. It's offensive. But access to success comes through failure. The only caveat, it doesn't have to be your failure.
Hmm.
So I'm someone who actually likes to fail because I like to discover things for myself when possible and when appropriate. It's
Yeah.
not always appropriate. Like if I was doing brain surgery, I wouldn't just, fail on purpose for the brain surgery. But there are lots of things in life that it's actually perfectly great to fail at. And there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from failure. So one of the things I'm seeing right now is failure is allowing yourself to fail is the opposite of just simply taking someone's word for it. And taking someone's word for it includes like reading it in a book or seeing it on Google or watching a YouTube video and thinking you know something about life or know something about something. You
Yeah.
may know something about it, but there's um, there's real value in having your own failures, and then when that's not appropriate or desirable, like maybe you don't want to fail at your marriage or something really big and with a lot of high stakes, then there's probably somebody available to you who's failed enough to actually know what they're doing. And so you could benefit from someone else's failure. So I prefer to benefit from my own failures when possible and appropriate, when I have the time for it, or there's nothing's going to get hurt that I care for, nothing or anyone is going to get hurt that I care for. In which case, I look to derive wisdom from other people's failures. So ultimately, the relationship, the failure that I usually have is access to success, access to growth, access to the fulfillment of what's important to me, my purpose, right? So I'll just create one more little thing and uh, conclude this thought. Um, uh, Good is the enemy of great. That's comes from a book called, I think, Good to Great or something. I forget the
Oh, I
author.
love that book. I read that a long
Yeah,
time ago.
yeah. So the good is the enemy to great. And so um, oftentimes people in avoiding failure, you rob yourself of the opportunity of greatness.
Mm,
So unless you're willing to fail, I'm not sure you can experience greatness without at least the willingness to fail. Oh,
yeah.
I got one more example right here in my life right now. So I've recently started painting. And I do so with great humility. I do not consider myself, I maybe consider myself a painter now because of just the sheer number of hours I've been putting paint on objects, but I don't consider myself an artist. Like I'm still just like sort of figuring it out. And I experienced failure. Like I experienced fear of failure. I experienced failure. I experienced embarrassment. Now I'm accomplished in other areas of my life, and I've completely transcended this in other areas of my life. But I find it very interesting that with regard to painting, um, I am very much right in the middle of it, that whole swirl of failing, resisting failing, succeeding, learning something, not learning something, resisting failing again, not failing, blah, 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 just like the whole swirl of it. It's literally day by
Yeah.
day. I'm working on the same painting. I'm working on a painting right now which looked kind of finished to me, but I wasn't sure that somebody made a suggestion and all of a sudden the experience of failure and frustration, I don't want to do this anymore. So I set it down. I come back this morning, I look at it, I do something, I don't like it. So that's a failure. I wiped it all off. That didn't really work out. So that's a failure. I did something else and maybe I kind of like it. Maybe it's a failure. I'm not really sure. So I'm like just totally in the swirl of this. But the point is over months, like I've just really started painting again over the last 2 or 3, 4 months. I've done a lot of paintings. Some of them I actually like. Some of them look to me like, oh, I guess that's art. Yeah, like I'm some that I actually like.
I guess that's art.
Yeah, and but I would not have access to that if I had stopped at the first failure, second failure, third failure,
Yeah.
20th failure, 30th failure, 70th failure. If I had stopped at any one of those points, which I have experienced that many, I'm not exaggerating, then I wouldn't be on this journey. I believe one day I'll be an artist. I believe one day I might really be a great artist. I believe I have it in me, and I believe I'm quite far from it. But I can see myself on the journey because I can see my results getting better and better. The results meaning that I like what I'm producing more often, more consistently, and more deeply over time. It feels kind of slow to me. I would like it to be progressing more quickly, but it's through the multiplicity of failures failure, success, success, failure, success, and just kind of back and forth. And every time I fail, in my estimation, in my opinion, I try to discern a lesson from it.
Mm,
Well, so I didn't like what I did. What did I do? Oh, I didn't like the composition. I didn't like the color choice. Okay, good. Oh, when I applied the color, water was dripping from my hand. I did that. I don't like that. So dry my hand every time. It's just like this is like one thing after another, and I am aware of learning a whole lot because now sometimes when I start a piece of work, all of a sudden I have 12 things pop into my head like, oh yeah, here are like the 12 lessons I learned about this. Make sure your hands are dry, make sure the paint's of the right consistency, really look at the colors and see if you really like how they're going to fit together once you start mixing them up. And so now I start much further ahead in the game at the beginning of every painting than I did, say, 3 months ago. So that's also a function
mm,
of my relationship to failure, where sometimes I just want to quit and never do it again. Um, instead of honoring that impulse, I'll create another objective, which is to learn a lesson and try something new and give grace to myself and remember that I'm still new on this journey. And there's, anything's possible if I'll just simply not stop, if I'll simply
yeah.
not succumb to my feelings about that. So let me pause there. That's one answer for
Yeah.
that.
What I'm hearing is also like sometimes with failure, I know through my own life and the personal experiences that I've had, it was like almost like it defined me, like,
Yes.
oh man, like, oh, this is, and it leaves like a pain on you. Especially with the failures, like when you said about failed marriages, and you don't want that to
Yeah.
happen. And with that, it brought the lesson of not wanting to do that again, and it put this compassion inside of my heart. So without it, there there's something that failure brings that we wouldn't be able to have um, without it. With that, I think that actually builds upon our success is because of those failures and those experiences with wisdom. And
Yeah.
so, how does one accept the feelings that come along with failure?
That's really great. I was just imagining a conversation to have, which you led me right into. Uh, so how do you overcome the feelings of failure? Would you ask the question again? Let me just lock it in.
Yeah, how
Uh,
does one accept the feelings that come along with failure?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I specifically am highly results driven. So this is just my recipe. I'm not, this is my recipe. I'm very results driven. So once I really connect, once I really see the connection between my relationship to failure and the results I'm producing in my life, once I allow myself to direct connect to that, it alters my behavior because I'm really
Mm,
committed to results. Like I'm really committed to the fulfillment of my purpose. I'm really committed to. I lead a leadership program here, right? So I'm deeply committed to providing leadership and mentorship and like an example that could be followed so that other people could experience the power and the joy of leadership that I've been able to experience, right?
yes.
So when I notice if I have a weak relationship to failure, discouragement, I literally stop doing what I'm supposed to be doing, what I want to be, what I'm committed to doing, or once I see a negative, once I notice that I have a negative or detrimental relationship with failure, and I see how that that's blocked the accomplishment of something that was really important to me. I would go back and really dial that in and set and get myself prepared, learn a lesson, get myself prepared for, okay, if that's going to happen again, what's my different response going to be?
Wow.
So I've had that, here in the village where I started something in frustration and then I was received with a certain opinion and I could never shake that opinion. Like that opinion stuck with me. And it prevented me from accomplishing what I was trying to accomplish when I presented the problem that I was presenting. So I was really clear. The energy with which I presented the problem prevented me from the teamwork and partnership that I was fully anticipating. And I got the opposite of that. And I couldn't shake anybody from it. Like, no matter what, like, no, that's like, no, see, there it is again. Like, it was like that kind of thing. I was like, okay, I'm out on this conversation. I'll withdraw my, like, whatever I was up to, I'll handle it on my own. And then that
Yeah.
was really incredibly painful for me. And so
Yeah.
I for weeks really contemplated the lesson that I learned and altered my internal state to be prepared for the next time that kind of thing happens and I'm soliciting support. I am going to have a whole different swing about how I go about that.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
started off with judgment of others. Now, the discernment of others, I think, is appropriate and could still happen in the future. The judgment was just further impeding what I was out to accomplish. So I had to
Yeah.
like rein in my judgment, humble myself to, what I got myself into, and then create a new swing, grow and get bigger and stronger as a result of it. And now I am completely prepared for my next swing and have been tested and have succeeded and so forth and so on. So that to me is about my highest relationship with failure. Like let it in, take responsibility, stop pointing the finger. It doesn't mean there isn't something to point at, but the pointing of
Yeah.
the finger is not assistive in this part process, right? So point the finger right back at me, develop a lesson that's more beautiful than the pain of the failure.
Mm.
So I let the pain of the failure dictate the size of the lesson that I'm about to onboard. What's that lesson going to be? I don't know yet. Don't I know?
I'll
It's
find it.
got to
I'm gonna
be
find
more
it.
profitable than that pain. And the pain was a test. So, oh boy, something's coming. Something big is coming. Right.
Mm.
That's a created relationship. That's not where I
Oh,
started.
yeah, that's so constructive, and it's what I heard inside of your share is that they're valid. Your feelings are valid, and they're pointing you at the state of being in which you're driving. And it's
Yeah.
all about the energy, and the
Yes.
reciprocation is nothing about you. It's about what it's pointing to. It doesn't
Yes.
define you. It's giving you a pointer on the lesson.
Even if someone is trying to have it define you, it doesn't
Yeah.
define
Yeah, it's what you, because you're the one driving, and
you.
you can recreate it if you are responsible
Yeah.
for what it is that you're up to. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
wow,
So,
that's power.
so on the flip side, right, there's a manager on the property who is managing a lot of stuff, and he's just not very organized and not very structured,
Hmm.
right? So there's a lot of chaos and a lot of broken agreements, right? He just forgets, and or or he's kind of impulsive too. So kind of forgets the agreement, just has an impulse, does it, and then like there's a mess made, and then his response to it is to steadfastly ignore that there was a failure.
Yeah.
I've never been able to get him to, or maybe one or two occasions I've been able to get him to acknowledge it was a failure, but only after like many minutes of conversation and one or two times out of like a couple hundred times, right?
Yeah.
So now I did have judgment about that. That is very frustrating for me, given you know the work that I've done around failure and the importance of the work that we're doing here. When someone doesn't keep an agreement or just does whatever and then fails to acknowledge that that's a breakdown, that was very difficult for me, right? Just personally. But from his point of view, so the impact of that is what he gets to work on is limited, right? Because we can't put him on anything that has to be done a particular way because he doesn't do things a particular way. Things the way he wants to do it, and he doesn't acknowledge that. So there's no upgrade, there's no training, there's no upgrade available because I can't get him to see the failure because
Right.
his relationship with failure is ignored at all costs, no matter what. No matter how bad it's going, ignore the failure, make a joke, ignore it under any circumstances, no matter the cost. That's just how I've seen him operate, right?
Yeah.
So what he gets to work on is limited, and who he gets to work with is limited. He doesn't get to work with me because I don't work with that anymore. I don't do it. So
Yeah.
so what he gets to work on and who he gets to work with is limited. Now he's unaware of this because he's unaware of the whole dynamic. And there, and then the impacts will go on into the future. There could be a time when we can't have somebody operating what he operates, or it may not be a problem, whatever it is. But he's definitely only playing on half the field and is completely unaware of it. Now, that's an analogy for everyone.
Yes.
We're all
Yes,
playing in
it
half
is.
the field, and we're all unaware of it because we all ignore failure because we've been taught to in the domestication. We've been hurt when we failed, and so it's really important to ignore it or deny it or
Or
poke it,
shapeshift.
poke it. You see, it wasn't a failure after all. Wee like
Yeah, or
you know,
shapeshift to like to be something else that you're not, and
yes.
like, oh, well, I could do this better,
Right. Or I don't resonate with the word failure. Oh, well, that totally explains what your life looks like. That explains everything.
Let me
I've had
recommit.
people tell me that. I've had people tell me that. Yeah. Yeah. So you've been trying to create a village for how many years? Oh, about 12 years now. Great. And you have how many people on the property? One. Okay. Do you see that you failed? Well, I don't really resonate with the term failure. I said, oh, that's perfect. That's why you failed, because all that your perspective about failure is exactly why you're failing. No, you don't understand. I don't. Oh, okay, got it.
Mm,
So he literally could have everything. He's talking with people who actually could assist him on exactly what he said he's committed to, because we have created a village and we have succeeded, right?
yes.
But his inability to even accept that there's such a thing as failure completely prevents him from learning to seeing his failures and learning the lessons from the failures.
Mm,
If he had been acknowledging his failures beginning 12 years ago, he would probably have a robust village. If he would simply acknowledge his failures today, he could have support from people who have actually accomplished what he said he wants to accomplish, and he could immediately step on the fast track to accomplishing what he wants to accomplish. But instead, he was offended by the very notion that I said he was failing and has basically cut off all communication.
mm.
Again, that analogy has nothing to do with him. That's everybody.
That's everybody. Yes, yes. That's why it's so critically important to find something that is of purpose.
Yeah.
Why? Because you are definitely going to run into failure. And
Yes.
the only way to succeed is by letting the failure in. It's
Yes.
actually seeing it and
Yes.
and saying, I'm committed to this purpose and I'm gonna get the lesson from this.
Yes. Now, to
Yep.
make that easier, that's difficult in the sense that people don't like to feel their feelings. Most people, most of the time, pause so everybody can find themselves right now. Most people, most of the time, right? Um, uh, I was so busy being funny, I lost my thread. Failure.
Oh, look
Boom,
at
I did it. I did it.
boom.
I failed. All right, I failed on the failure podcast. Come on. Come
Well, that
on.
was the hard part. What was the other part?
Yes. So to make thank you. So okay, our bad is it. I acknowledge my failure. Now move right back to success. Look at this. Come on. To understand that there's no good or bad, right or wrong.
Yes.
It's not that failure isn't bad. It's not that failure isn't wrong. It's that there's no such thing as bad and wrong.
Mm,
There's only what works and doesn't work given what you're committed to. So the person who acknowledges there is such thing as failure, but refuses under penalty of death, to acknowledge their own failure,
mm.
does so because his perspective is failure is bad and wrong, and it's not okay. It's obviously bad and wrong to be bad and wrong, right? So,
Yeah.
so it's very, very difficult for him, painful for him to consider that he failed because he believes it's bad and wrong. And underneath that, he believes there is such thing as bad and wrong.
Or that maybe there's that whole thing about defining yourself as bad and wrong. Like failure means that I'm wrong, that I'm
Yes,
bad.
exactly.
And
Right.
like, whoo,
Yeah.
yeah,
And underpinning that, there has to be a thing called bad and wrong.
yeah, Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on to the other person who refuses to acknowledge the existence of failure. That's like two steps removed. It's one step
Yeah.
removed. You're like, oh no, there's failure, but not me. Okay, that's one step removed because people fail all the time, right?
Yeah.
Two steps removed is, oh, there's no, oh, I just blank. I don't live in a reality where failure exists. Really? That's odd because I see you right in front of me. We look to me like we're in the same reality, right? So that person is two steps removed from accomplishing anything, accomplishing anything of value. Because anything of value is connected to scarcity, rarity. Gold is valuable because it's rare. Diamonds are valuable because it's rare, right? People of character are valuable because they're rare. If everybody had incredible integrity and incredible character and, you know, operated from love and, if everybody had that, it wouldn't be valuable. It would just be the air that we breathe. It would just be,
Yeah.
would just be normal, right? And the reason character, integrity, responsibility is so valuable is because it's so rare.
Yeah.
And so, and so, I don't know where I was going with that. Maybe that would be the complete.
Well, it is rare, and it's rare that you find a village doing that. It's rare
Yes,
that you find an environment in which is committed to living a life that is on purpose, that is greater than themselves, and
yes,
to not complain or point blame and shame somebody else or point fingers elsewhere. It actually accepts the failure and is ready to produce the results because there is a such thing as failure. It's like,
right.
hey, I'm responding to this ably because I want to be the change that I wish to see in this world. And wow, it's a whole different ball game when you just keep doing it and you don't give up and you just keep on taking the shots and be okay and accept your failures. Like, wow, wow. It's a lot
So,
easier. It is a lot easier with a community, with people that are supporting you because you have eyes on it as well.
well, I think the biggest contribution that community is to keep reminding you of a higher perspective. Like
Yeah.
I still have a pang when I fail, like ouch,
Yeah.
right? But I'm practiced at seeing the truth quickly.
Mm,
Um, and sometimes I miss the truth and I don't see the truth quickly. And on those occasions, my community supports me.
yeah.
You know, the other thing, so as a tool to make it easier to embrace failure, I brought there's no good or bad, right or wrong, just what works or doesn't work, given what you're committed to. Right. So good and bad, right and wrong is the world of morality. What you should do, what you shouldn't do, and what's right and what's
Mhm.
wrong, and what's good and what's bad. That's not a realm that I really dwell in. I'm not a master of that. I don't teach that. I don't live inside of that. I'll live inside of what works or doesn't work, even when I'm committed to. And my integrity, my choice to be a man of integrity or a man of character, or to keep my word, or to show
Mhm.
up on time, or to give my best, and or to fulfill a purpose. My integrity doesn't come from it's right. It doesn't come from being right. It doesn't come from being good. It comes from that works for me, given what I'm committed to. Well, gee, Kirk, what are you committed to? Well, I'm committed to bringing heaven on earth. I'm committed to
Mhm.
creating sustainable villages that regenerate themselves and people can live at and actually live in harmony and live in love and peace and joy, where you know people where people are waking up. Like the whole purpose of our community is to wake up and live in love and follow God's purpose, right? So the reason I choose to bring honor and dignity to my actions and my words and my being is not because it's the right thing. It's not because it's the good thing. It's because it works to fulfill my mission and to fill my life with abundance and peace and love and joy and connection and light. So the other thing, the other vehicle, the other perspective that encourages the embrace of failure is fail fast, right? So a lot of times somebody will propose something and we're like, I don't know if that's good. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work or not. Yeah, it could work. I don't know. What should we do? Well, should we sit around and think about it for another couple of months? We don't usually choose that option.
Mm,
Sometimes we choose like let the flower unfold and let's just see what happens, but we don't
yeah.
we don't we don't strategize for a month. We don't think about it for a really long time. We don't wait till all the conditions are perfect, right? What we often do is, well, we don't know if it's going to succeed or not, and we're probably not going to know until we try it. So let us try it ferociously, fully and completely, right out the gate. And if it's going to work, we'll discover that quickly. And if it's going to fail, we'll discover that quickly. And if that's the case, if it's going to fail and we discover it quickly, then we will that much more quickly get an opportunity to try something that might really work.
Mm,
So in most people's avoiding failure, they bring failure upon themselves. The person who's getting ready to start a business for 5 years, right?
yeah.
Or getting ready for anything, or getting ready, get ready. While you're ready, I'll be ready just a minute. Okay, good. You ready? I'll be ready about a week. Okay, you ready? I'll be ready about a month. Okay, you
I'm
ready
working on
now?
it.
Huh? What?
I'm working on it. The famous line.
Yeah,
I'm working on
yeah.
it.
Or I'm in the middle of the 6 month course, and when I finish that, I'll be ready. Okay, great. Oh, like, okay, 6 months later, you ready? Oh, this is graduate course now. It's 12 months. I'm gonna do that. Then I'll be ready. Man, you ain't never ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that person is literally trying to avoid failure all the time, bringing failure upon oneself by refusing to take action, by refusing to be
Mm,
bold. Um, uh, Fortune favors the bold. Fortune, uh,
fortune.
fortune. That's a military quote, right?
Okay.
Prompting generals to take bold action, right?
Yeah.
Fortune favors the bold. The general sits around and like waits for the battle to
Mm,
come to him. Not a great track record. The general who
wow.
decides how this battle is going to go and where it's going to go and when it's going to go and how it's going to start and most importantly how it's going to finish, that general is much more likely to be successful.
Wow. You
Yeah,
find yourself in the choices and the decisions that you make. And
yeah,
so that,
and that general gets to fight his battle, not the other general's battle. So you
right.
convert that to life. You get to live your life, not the life everybody around you tells you you're supposed to live.
Yeah. And just because someone else, you are in a partnership, what I just came to is like,
Yeah,
even if you're in a partnership and the other person like fails and they can't do, it has nothing to do with you,
correct.
and you can find yourself and stand on your own 2 feet when you are dedicated to
Yes,
a commitment and a
yes,
purpose. Wow.
yes.
Wow. And it has nothing to do with the other people that are involved.
Yeah, John and mine's partnership is a great example of that. We both develop programs and lead them and stuff, and sometimes we lead together, sometimes we lead separately. But we both had examples of creating something and have it just flop. Oh, boom! Wow, I really hit the ground pretty hard. Yeah, sure did. Well, I'm not taking on any, shame because of his thing, and he's not taking on any shame because of my thing, and I'm not taking on any shame for my thing neither. Well, maybe for like 5 minutes. I don't think for him it's even 5 minutes, right? And then we, we'll giggle about it, or we'll learn, start whipping up lessons and new swings and new strategies. Okay, let's try. Yeah, let's try this. Okay, let's fail fast, brother. Okay, here we go. Oh, we can go off again and succeed or fail either way. But there's definitely no residue on one another about that. He gets to succeed or fail anyway. He wants to do that, and so do I.
Yeah. And there's completely different angles on which you guys operate from. And
Yeah,
it serves the whole, it serves the purpose, it serves the collective purpose. And so it's really beautiful to watch that. And what you distinguished this there was if I'm going to do it, I'm going to be 100% in. I'm going to be 100% like all in into this decision, even if the possibility of failure is
That's
there.
really
I'm
great.
committed to it.
That's really great. I missed that entirely. So the other reason people most the other most common reason people fail is to not give it 100%. Well,
Mm,
it's probably not going to work out, so I'll just like give it a try and see how it works out. Never do that. Swing as hard as you can and then
hmm.
see how that works out. if you stick
Yeah,
your if you stick your little pinky in the water, your chances of success are minimal. If you dive in and give it everything you got, your chances of success are elevated. You still may fail, but then you'll discover exactly where the failure is. See, if you give something a shot and it doesn't work out, you don't really know why it didn't work out. If you give
yeah,
it everything you got, leave nothing on the field, man, just sweat and blood everywhere. Like, give it everything you got, and you fail, you'll probably find the specific thing that you failed at, or at least the first thing. There might be 3 barriers to success, but at least you'll smack into the first one. Boom! Wow, that looks like a barrier. Sure feels like one too, right? You got bruise on your forehead and all that. And then you
yeah,
resolve that barrier, and then you reset and let it rip again. You boom, up to the second barrier. You failed again. Well, yes, but more importantly, I discovered the next barrier. Well, you're going to succeed next time? I don't know how many barriers there are.
mm, gosh,
And then
that
you
also,
slam up against the second barrier. Like, oh, now I fully present to the location of the barrier. Well, how are you so sure? Look at the bruise on my forehead. Boom, and then you resolve that barrier, and then you tee up and rinse and repeat until you fire off and says,
yeah, that just
and
distinguished for me. Yeah, that distinguished for me just there is that the failure of whatever it is that you're doing, it might be present. You might see the barrier, but you're succeeding 100% in your character.
yes, yes.
That that far outweighs anything. It's like, well, I know I fucking gave it 100%. I know it ain't me. It's something else. So it's
That's
like,
like
wow,
that's literally. Oh, here's another fun one.
yeah.
Failing your way to success.
Mm,
This is not exactly true, but George Washington in the Revolutionary War had a reputation for losing a lot of battles, and he won the war. Now he did win some key battles, but he lost a lot of battles, right? And sort of given the circumstances, he was literally failing his way to victory because his opponent was the British, and they were across an ocean. They had great difficulty supplying themselves. There's a lot of logistical headaches, and they were fighting another war. There's like a lot of strain on the British Empire to keep up the war. So George Washington didn't have to win battles; he just had to remain in existence. Because
mm,
as long as his army was on the field, the British had to keep doing what they were doing. And finally, he got himself in a position to bring it home, right? But well, no, actually, oh yeah, he literally failed his way to victory until he got the French. The whole strategy was to get the French involved, who hated the British, right? So all the Americans had to do was to demonstrate they were cohesive enough to survive the British. They were cohesive enough to keep an army on the field, because all that was an open question at the time because they weren't a country before that. And
mm-hmm.
then they satisfied the conditions of the French, who were just looking for an excuse to tangle with the British, right? And so he literally failed his way to victory by existing long enough, holding it together long enough for the French to go, okay, you've earned it. Now we'll come in and finish it up. And so, beautiful example, even though it might not be quite historically accurate, beautiful example of failing one's way to success. So I've definitely experienced that a lot of my career is failure, 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 victory. Like, oh shit, how do I want to go here? So
Yeah,
failing is not actually an indication of failing from this perspective. Failure
yeah,
doesn't necessarily take you away from victory. It's all a matter. It's very much a function of your relationship to the event that you're calling a failure. Oh, you could even. Oh wow. Okay, good. So one more layer is that as you're failing your way to success, you can literally reinvent your perception of it, and each air quotes failure could actually be a success because it's one step closer to ultimate victory, which is again
yeah,
is an alteration of perspective. Why would you alter your perspective in this case? Well, the same reason you alter your perspective in any case to give you more power, more capacity, more ability to accomplish something that's important to you. So the the perception that failure is bad and wrong is not accurate. It's simply a perception.
Yeah.
Failure is just failure. There is no good or bad, right or wrong. It just is what it is. I wanted to do this and this happened. Is that bad? No. I wanted this and this happened. Is that wrong? One more time. I wanted this and this happened. That's period. There's nothing. We don't need to bring drama and trauma and it's what it is, right? So from that perspective, all of a sudden a whole world becomes available of success and accomplishment that was not available before inside the perception that failure is bad and wrong. Right. So the perception that there is a bad and wrong is one way that your legs get taken out from under you. Then the perception that failure is bad and wrong is the second leg that gets taken out from under you. And then the world agrees with that failure is bad and wrong. So every perceived failure that shows up, not only will you beat yourself up, so will others, right? And it
Yeah.
creates this negative spiral. And one last thought on this that might be the conclusion is ego particularly hates failure because the point of the ego is to keep the body, the animal, not
Mm-hmm.
the soul, but the animal, the body that we are, the physicalness that we are, safe and
Yeah.
comfortable. So the ego wants to present success so that it doesn't get attacked, so that it gets to ask for stuff or take stuff. It finds itself in a better position, better reputation, that sort of thing. So the ego wants to keep this facade going of success, 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 so that it's keeping you safe. Now, some egos have the opposite strategy. The super victim is always failing at everything, but towards the same end, towards the end of being comfortable, being safe, being heroed and taken care of in some way. But oftentimes, people around you will attack you for failure because they're so freaked out by the possibility of failing that any failure anywhere around them is highly reactive. So sometimes people are attacking you for your failure has nothing to do with your failure. They just got reminded of their own failures and can't feel those feelings. And so they want, you're right there having a hard time. So, boom, you're the flailing, you're the flailing injured bird. And, the other ego is the cat that gets attracted to the wounded, to the wounded prey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Oftentimes it's weird why you're in the middle of a failure and you get attacked. Like some of the times I've judged people around me the most is when I'm failing, and the people I thought were my support then now choose that moment to attack me. But it actually makes perfect sense when you realize how uncomfortable people are with their own failure, and when they see failure in you, they see themselves. They freak out.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially when you're up to something so important because they're looking to you. Like they're looking to see, hey, is there a weak spot in there because I'm trusting you? And when they don't trust themselves, they're like, hey, what's going on here? It's you. And
Yes.
just wow.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for that distinguishment. Thank you for these tools. Thank you for your perspectives on the way that we can change the relationship that we have to failure in such a beautiful way, and experience and wisdom and your leadership. It's profound. Um, I also just want to recommend for anybody that's watching this, that's just hearing this for the first time, and you want to dive deeper into this work. Kirk McDowell is hands down one of the best leaders that I've ever had the experience to work with, and the Visionary Leadership Program will be down in the comments section. And just let us help you to support you in your journey in discovering your voice from the inside out. So
Beautiful.
just
Thank you. I
thank
appreciate
you, Kirk. I
it. You're so very
appreciate you.
welcome. You're so very welcome.
All right. I think that's concluded.
That's it. All right. That's it. Shut this puppy down.